Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Rebel Show. How's everybody? We're doing great here. It is a awesome Saturday afternoon, super hot. This morning we went to the park, took Taylor to the park, and we basically just let her run around on the playground and wear herself out. And then she takes a nap, and that's awesome. And she, those big swirly slides that are like a tube? She likes to just dive down that head first, and that's pretty entertaining. She loves it. And then she'll just run around, come back up, and just do it over and over again until we basically make her stop. So that's a lot of fun. We try to do that Saturdays. But today, we'll get a little more serious. And I want to talk about racism, because I feel like in society right now, everything is racist. And that's not possible, It seems like if you're pro-American, that's racist. And that's weird, right? To be for your country. Society kind of teaches inclusion. Exclusion is racist. So if I call myself, I'm a man, oh, well, you can't use that term because you're not including other people that identify different ways. And you can be racist that way. And I feel like if you're calling someone racist, that's kind of judging them anyway. Do you really know the intentions in their heart? Do you really know what's on the inside of them? It doesn't quite make sense. You could probably say something that people could think, oh man, that's racist, but you may not mean it to be. So can it be racist if you don't mean it to be? Nowadays, it seems like anything could be racist if you change the definition of racism. And I think that's kind of happening right now. If you don't agree with a certain set of principles or ideas, that must mean you're racist or something. In the dictionary, racism is prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against someone of a different race based on the belief that one's own race is superior. That's kind of how I look at it. It goes on. The belief that all members of each race possess characteristics or abilities specific to that race, especially so as to distinguish it as inferior or superior to another race or races. I think if you walk down an alley and you see a bunch of people dressed like gang members, you can go, oh, I think that's a gang. But if you went down the same alley and you saw people dressed in suits, like for a ball or something, you would have a totally different response, right? So that's partially true, I think, because some races or people do have characteristics that are specific to them. And I don't know that that would be racist, maybe, but I know a lot of basketball players are tall and they're really good at the game. So to say that, is that racist? I don't think so. So let's break this down a little bit. So prejudice is a preconceived opinion that is not based on reason or actual experience. Dislike, hostility, or unjust behavior deriving from unfounded opinions. So that's a prejudice, right? That's part of the definition of racism. And discrimination. The unjust or prejudicial treatment of different categories of people or things, especially on the grounds of race, age, or sex. So I think we agree that prejudice and discrimination shouldn't exist, right? It's going to be out there occasionally, but it really shouldn't. Antagonism is active hostility or opposition. So that's included in the definition of racism. So that's the old definition. If the new definition's out, what we're going by, we got to take a look at that and have that discussion. And I think we need to have the discussion because we don't want these type of things in our culture at all as much as possible. We want to weed it out and embrace our differences, even though we don't agree with them. Other people sometimes. Nowadays, everything from a PBJ and lawns, I read the other day, to white robots are potentially racist, according to CNN. That's what we think about CNN. I didn't know that having a lawn was racist, though. You should look that one up. That's a good read. And it seems nowadays, if you agree with certain positions, it's because you're racist. Now, that is where we got to be careful. If we don't have some diversity, we're just sheep. We're just robots. We need difference in opinion, So opinions help keep us in check and strong. That's why we have multiple branches of government, and that's why we have multiple parties, because they balance each other out. If you just have one way of thinking, that's tyranny. You need other opinions and ideas to balance us out. It's so important. So one side can't just take over. Society's getting tired of everything being racist and the race card, and it desensitizes us to real racism. That's a good point to realize. If everything is racist, well then, who cares? No, we need to focus on not being this way. It's like crying wolf. At some point, you're just like, well, whatever. We don't like that. Racism does exist. America is not a racist nation, though. People are saying now that it's racist. Slaves were here on this continent way before the United States of America. They arrived in 1619 in Virginia. It was America, the continent, but not the United States. It wasn't the Union yet. They were brought here by Europeans looking to make quick profits from struggling colonists. And just because there were slaves on the land does not mean that we were founded as a racist nation. Slavery existed long before America was drawn on the map. Slavery exists today all over the world. There's still cultures that do that. They even enslaved their own people, their own race. A group of men believed mankind had rights given by God himself. They believed that they were rights no man could take away. Many countries have allowed the government to take away their God-given rights. God gave rights to the species of mankind. Man have rights. And a lot of times we allow government to take them away or modify them. And that is why there's a constitution. These governments, these cultures or countries, they did not have a government sworn to protect these rights like the United States does. They're sworn to protect them. That's the main purpose of the government, is to protect the God-given rights we have. These beliefs were the basis for the founding of the United States. These unalienable rights led the founders and later leaders to push to abolish slavery. With slavery all over the world, the United States of America ended it here. That's important to realize. There's still slavery. There's always been throughout all cultures, but we, Americans, ended it. How can a nation, since its founding document, the Declaration of Independence, trying to promote liberty for all citizens and free enslaved people, be racist? Let's think about that. Why would racist people that are founded in racism try to free and liberate people that were enslaved and their own people that were being persecuted by another country? Why would they do that? That doesn't make any sense, does it? Presidential candidate Cory Booker says racism is written in the founding documents, and I would like him to show me, because you can't find that anywhere. Maybe in the Declaration of Independence, where it says all men, and that's referring to the mankind, the people, all are created equal, and they are endowed by their creator unalienable rights, is racist to him. Maybe he doesn't want all people to be created equal. Maybe he thinks some people are better than others. Racism still exists today in the United States. Sleepy Joe Biden said the other day that poor kids are as bright and talented as white kids. He's a presidential candidate. Obama. Racism is in our DNA. That doesn't make any sense at all. Racism is something that would be learned. I know people that have a little bit of racism in them, and it can be passed down. If you see your parents acting a certain way, you may develop those characteristics. You may not. But it's not in our DNA. And if it is in our DNA, how are we going to fix it? What's there to do to fix it? So think about some of these inner cities of Baltimore. Mayor Jack Young has a population of 602,000. New York, Bill de Blasio, population 8.3 million. New Jersey, Phil Murphy, population 9 million. Houston, Sylvester Turner, population 2.3 million. Los Angeles, Eric Garcetti, 4 million. San Francisco, London Breed, 900,000. In California, 40 million people. Very democratic states here with higher populations. And a lot of these cities have high poverty, very strict gun laws, high gun crime. They have a lot of ghettos and few job opportunities. These inner cities are the towns, and towns are crumbling. I saw an interview of a woman the other day. It was from Baltimore, and she was saying how her apartment complex water system had been hooked up to fire hydrants because their water pipes were so old that they were crumbling and they couldn't work. I say this to point out the ghettos and inner cities are run by the Democrats. We hear about schools or nightclub shootings, but never all the murders that happen in the ghettos. They run the city into the ground, trap the people without jobs, and make them dependent on them. Then they rule the city for decades. Generational poverty. People never leaving the city. There's people that have never left their little city area. Not the whole state, the city. Gangs and fatherless children are huge in these inner cities. To me, this type of leadership is racist, where you don't go in and try to fix this, and you don't try to bring your community up. When President Trump calls this out and brings to light this dark situation, he's called a racist because he attacks someone of color, is what they say. Who cares who it is? Trump will attack anybody if they're doing something wrong. Any color, any race, it doesn't matter. And we're too focused on race. We're a human. We're humanity. And if we don't control ourselves, it gets bad. It's been bad in history in the 14 and 1500s. We could go back to that if we're not careful. So be careful when someone calls or pulls the race card. It could be because they're trying to distract you from something they're doing, right? They don't want you to see the truth. They don't want you to see that the modern plantation exists. And I say, let's vote these people out and fix these inner cities. And we're not all racists, and we condemn those that are. Thank you very much.